Hello and welcome. I'm Bill Wake. We're here working on a role-playing game about design patterns. We're writing it in Elm. It used to be a live action role-play game, but I wanted to try and make it work this way. So let's see where we are. All right. Oops. Okay. So what we have so far is we've got the bulk. Well, the bulk of the game, I would say. So let me get this thing running again. And we can get our tests running too. Slowly, okay. There's a test watch. All right. So Elm localhost 8000 is here. Let's refresh. All right. So the setup is you entered this dungeon and you come in, and each room has a sort of puzzle to solve. And there's a picture, then a description, and then headline, what do you do? And you can choose some actions, which we've been working on lately. And eventually you may decide to solve the puzzle, answer what's the pattern, okay? And right now I just have a small dungeon with just 3 patterns in the list. And finally, you've got doors, and some of them are unknowns because we've never gone through this door. So if we go through here, we get to a different room. Picture scale's got some work to do, but we can go back, and when we go back, we know which room we're going to. It's the one we just were in. All right, now you see one of the unknown rooms, one of the unknown doors is now known. Okay. In real life, well, in a future stage, I guess we should say, I would like to make it so that this door doesn't open until you solve the puzzle. And maybe both doors don't open until you solve the puzzle. We'd like to control that. So once you guess the right puzzle, that should work. It should change from a lock. It should be a lock while it requires you to solve the puzzle, and then an unlock becomes either a question mark or a room you've seen. You might have seen it if you've taken a different path through the dungeon or something like that. I'm not making any restrictions there. All right, so the description for this thing, as in what's the name of the image, the description, the actions, the pattern, and I guess the exits, that's all a configuration. And right now we just do it in code. Okay, so here's room 1, here's its image, here's its description. It has a puzzle which contains the dialogue and the solution and the exits. Okay. This is done in code with the actual objects. Over here, we took the trouble to make the JSON, and we'd like to eventually load the JSON, well, from a remote file and configure the dungeon like that. And we're going to look at doing that today. I'm not sure what else we left unsaid or undone. All right. But let's see, we can certainly update the date here. Okay, so this is episode 10 on the 10th day of the 10th month. I guess it was meant to be. All right, so load a dungeon from a file. Well, we did a lot of background work. Well, it wasn't super hard, but because it was generated for the most part. But we have these decoders, and you can decode JSON to get a dungeon. So let's go to the test for that. Okay. So in this case, let's see. We just check that we can read from the JSON. Okay, so here's the expected answer built with objects, and then here's the JSON that we're going to read by calling decode.decode string for dungeon decoder. All right, now this is happy to read a string. We need one that's going to read a file, and that's the focus of today's work. I think we probably have some other stuff to do to make that reasonable. Well, I'm pretty sure we do. And then also we have, I don't know, I hope I'm not making things backwards, making more work. But we would like to have the headlines and stuff like that come from the dungeon description too. So what do you do and what's the pattern? And doors right now is hard-coded text. And, think about internationalizing. If I translate it into French, I don't know, c'est ça une boîte or something. Okay. And that's great. But then if it says, what do you do? Well, that's kind of, Académie Française would be very upset for me putting English in with the French. Okay. And I would too, because it's not French. All right. We'd want a new picture. We'd have to update the text. Okay. And then if the headers are English, that's a problem. So we'd like to make that part of our file at some point. And then another one is, I don't know if we mentioned, well, optional puzzles. I guess I also want to make certain doors stay locked until the puzzle is solved. I'd also like to have the notion of some rooms, well, how do I say this? I don't know. Maybe it's doors stay locked until a condition is met, e.g., greater than 3 puzzles solved. Okay. And another one, let's see. Oh, you only get at most n guesses to solve a room. Okay, so if you're here, well, imagine this is a list of, 23 patterns in the original design patterns book. You've got these 23 design patterns, and to get to the unlock the door, you're just going to select, well, let's try observer. No, let's try prototype. Oh, that's right. Let's try proxy. Let's try prototype. Eventually you'll hit it. Okay. I don't want you to go through and cheat and do all 23. I want to say you get 3 guesses, and if you mess up, you can't use this door. Now, we've got to make sure the dungeon accommodates that. It's got some alternate paths and things like that. But still, we'd like that capability. Okay, so that's something. More text from the dungeon description, yeah. Some rooms might not need a puzzle, and maybe they just have, there's at least one map I have has a hallway with 3 or 4 or 5 doors in it, and I don't need a puzzle for that one. So we got to figure out what to do about that if I want to make a fuss about it. I don't know. I've got images that need work. I've mostly written the dialogues. So this I did offline. Let's see, where's dungeon JSON? So I missed at least a couple. But what that means is I went through the situations. Here's a door labeled costume shop. A vampire asks you for help, and you ask for a costume, or you ask for another costume, or something like that. And basically I wrote up these scenarios for each one of these things. Okay, so we've got a few more. I've got some that probably don't translate very well into this structure we have. I may just leave them out, but we've got a little work to do. So I guess what this comes to is maybe it's 3 roles. It may be more than that. One role is the game designer. Okay. And these are all played by me. Game designer, I'm deciding what are the actions, what are the puzzles, all that stuff. Then there's a visual designer. Okay, well, partly that maybe they drew the pictures for the game, or they're deciding like, half an inch after a heading seems excessive, so they got to think about the CSS or at least the look of the CSS. And then we also are doing a software design. Okay, aka programmer in our case. Okay. We got to cover all these three things. I spared you some of the game designer by doing this one, on my own. But these CSS ones, they're more about visual design. Some of the other stuff is more just straight up programming. Okay, but anyway, if we're going to load the dungeon from a file, well, one thing we're doing, so Elm, at least as far as, Elm works with immutable objects. And you can only get so far with that if you want to do anything dealing with files, remote devices, randomness, changing data, dates and times, lots of stuff that isn't immutable. It's mutable. The world changes and we want to make sure things happen. Well, there's what they call the Elm architecture. I don't know if it would always have caps, but this is, again, it's very similar to the idea for React, but you kind of split up how you treat things. And then there's a system the part of the system that deals with the mutable state and kind of turns things into messages to you. And we looked at this. I'll bring it up again just because it's kind of fundamental to how Elm works. It says you've got a main program and then browser sandbox. I'm not sure what the choices are, but this is the piece that's doing the coordination. And I have to tell it three things. I tell it the initial state, which is a function, and in our case we got an object called state. And then I tell it what function do you call to update the system? And update takes a message and a model and produces a model. Okay. And the model in our case is the state. Message are the things that users can trigger so they can go to a different room by clicking the boxes on the bottom. They can try and guess a pattern name, the answer to the puzzle, and they can do the action string, like, ask the vampire for a pharaoh costume or something like that. Shake the box. All right. And so when the browser sandbox runs things, it gets the initial state and that's the model. And then it gets a message. And so it takes the message in the current model and you have to tell it how to produce a new model given this message. And in our case, the state gets updated and the current room is here. The list of visited rooms is here. Okay, so our update is take the state, change to the new room, insert the new room in the list of visited rooms, and then pull out the guesses and the actions. They stay the same. And I probably could update it more like this. Here's pattern name. Well, if you make a particular guess, I'm gonna update my guesses to reflect that you've made that guess. Okay, so I update the model with a new dictionary where I've inserted your guess for the current room and your actual guess for the pattern into this existing dictionary. And I do a similar thing for the guesses for the actions. Let's see, we can see this in action, as it were. All right, so if I choose an action, shake the box, and nothing happens. If I go away, all right, and then I go back, I've still got this, shake the box, nothing happens. So it remembers the last action for me. Same thing for the pattern. I had selected prototype, and it remembers that. If I selected something wrong, and go back, it's still, sorry, that's not it. Okay, so these things, they are memorized in the state of the system, the model for the object. And then the final one is the view. Let's see, so the view, there's a view function that does it too. And the view says, give me a model and I'll tell you what HTML and message there should be. Okay. And we've divided it up into pieces, but we start off, we say, okay, take whatever your review does, either helper method, and attach a style to it. So that's how we get the CSS in. Then we got the scene, which is the image, the main image and the main description. Then the acting section, the guessing section, and the doors section. All right. So each one of those produces objects. This H2 div br, they're Elm analogs for many of the HTML tags. So we can put stuff in our display. Okay. And so when I say, hey, we've hard-coded text for the headers, here's an example of that. We've got an H2 and the text is, what do you do? Okay. So what the bottom of this is, though, is that we don't, let me find the uses. Here's the dungeon, the current dungeon, which is sort of the game itself. It's not part of our state. Let's find our state object. Okay. Our state knows the current room, the visited rooms, the guesses, and the actions. It doesn't say anything about the dungeon itself. Okay. Now the dungeon is sort of a static object. So, well, nothing sort of about it. It's an immutable object, but it's still, it's being brought into things by just referencing this kind of global state. All right. Which in a way I don't mind that. Well, I can not mind, but it's convenient. Maybe that's the way to say it. Like many globals. Let's find dungeon. Yep. Okay. Yeah, so we can ask for we can get the current room picture. Okay, so we go to the model, we ask for the current room, and then we look up the image for the dungeon. So the dungeon knows the image for the current room. All right. But here we are just grabbing this variable and using it in the code. Now, I don't know. Okay, do we use dungeon in these? I don't see it in our update message, so that's good. And our initialization is really about the state, so we don't have it in there. So right now, the view is the big inheritor of this, but it's taking advantage of this hard-coded dungeon. All right, so what the bottom line of this is, though, is the dungeon should come from outside. It should be a file that we load at some point. And I think given the nature of this as sort of a web-based game, I'd like to just put the dungeon JSON out there somewhere and read it in, and that's my dungeon, and use that. All right, so the bottom line of this is that dungeon should not be a globally accessed thing. It should be part of the state, but it can be configured early on. All right, and you might say, well, gee, I don't see much way to configure it if it's not, well, it could be loaded in the state initially, but it's not there, okay? And if it's coming from an outside, the way it is today, I could load it from the state in the init, but it's coming from the outside world. That sounds like mutable stuff, okay? I mean, I might want to change my description here. Maybe I put backwards quotes because I think I did at some point. The font I'm using does not distinguish, well, it visually doesn't distinguish left and right curly quotes, even though they might be kept the same. So some of these are right and some of them are probably wrong. Okay. But at any rate, this is not, I might have reasons to change it. Okay. Oh, you made a bad exit. Oh, better fix it. All right. And I just wanted to update a JSON file and not update my code. Okay. So how do we get this thing there originally? Well, this is something I haven't done before, but my understanding is there's a way, well, normally the way you get information updated into us is this update method. And basically you give a command in effect, message, whatever. I believe what we're going to do is basically create a new command that's basically load the file or load the game that's going to be responsible for, maybe we tell it the where to get it or something like that. But that's going to be an early step in this. So I have a copy of Element Action. It's probably a couple years old, but I think the solution they have is don't use this, use something else. All right, let me see if I can find it. Okay, so what they suggest is there's a function Browser.element that takes an initializer and an initial command, as well as a view update, and then also allows subscriptions. Okay. Subscriptions I'm not going to get into. I don't understand it that much anyway, but it's a way for JavaScript to communicate to you. Maybe it's like a notification kind of thing, but we don't need them, so that's fine. But we will have to change this. So the init, let's see if we can find, let's go to the documentation. Okay, so this is browser. I mean, before I just used it and didn't say much about it. I'm just copying boilerplate from somewhere. But okay, sandbox reacts to input. Element talks to the outside world like HTTP and files. And document lets you control more, and application lets you create a whole app. Okay, there's not much there. Let's go here. Okay, sandbox, init, view, and model. Well, that's exactly what we did. Okay. I recommend reading this guide. I probably ought to read the guide, but here's element. Element takes init with a model and an initial command. Excuse me. So the idea is we're going to give ourselves an opening command that says like open the file and include it. And with that, we'll have a way to do, external things. Okay. And then also there's some changes. Update message model goes to model and command message. So I believe you can kind of do chaining. So if one command wants to trigger another, I think that's how this works. So you produce a model and you say, oh, by the way, you also ought to what? Oh, I ought to, init. I ought to add a new command on there. So handle a command with update, and then it tells you the next command to run, and then you handle that one, and eventually somebody's going to come back with Cmd.none, I think it is. And Cmd.none says don't do anything else. All right, let's see if we can find command. And the irony here is you're probably, well, I guess it's like you're probably either more or less knowledgeable about this than me. And if you're more knowledgeable, this is kind of like totally useless. And if you're less knowledgeable, it probably doesn't make sense. So to the one person out there who's in the same position I am, I guess, let's see. So hopefully search by type lets me type command and I can find this thing. But I'm like, pretty sure there's a Cmd.none that deals with Cmd. No results found. Okay. Can I go back? Sometimes these get linked. No. Browser. Sandbox has command. You're not going to link it. Well, we'll have to find more about that. Oh, also, we got to worry about flags now. Okay. Well, I don't know if the command, we have to provide it. Not in here. Okay. DOM events. None of these sound like... Yeah, these are more browser events. I mean, I'm glad that we can handle them, but yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see what comes up there. All right. So, a long intro. I'm sorry. What that tells me is our state, our model, which is a state, needs to keep track of the dungeon too. And, you know, maybe a way to think about this is, like, suppose we had the French and the English and all the other versions out there by language. You might have buttons that choose which one to use. And we'd want to tell ourselves, like, oh, which one? And maybe we even let you switch your language halfway through and start in English and go to French. You know, maybe you're trying to learn French, and you try the rooms in French, and if you can't figure it out, you'd switch to English and then go back, maybe. Those kind of features, you know, that sort of says, ooh, knowing which language you're in really is kind of part of your state job. All right. So I think what we have to do then is get the dungeon in the state. Okay. And I'm kind of skimming through to see what I can learn from my element action. Okay. And I don't know. So they define initial command, okay, which is reasonable enough. And so I'll just put the example they have. Initial command, type command message, and the function equals, well, they do capital HTTP get, and then the URL equals something, and then they do expect equals. Now in their case it was http.expect string got photos. Okay, I don't know what that means. All right, so let's go look up expect string. Well, let's look up http.get. That's probably the bigger question. Elm library. HTTP. Well, there's an example. Commands to send an HTTP request. Oh, so http.get is the actual remote get. Okay. And I guess the expect is probably what do you do? What do you do? And maybe the action? Okay, the type is command message. All right, so we're going to have to see what http.get does, right? Okay, so get produces a command message. All right, so that's good. Command message is what our Elm architecture browser.expected or .element needs to work with. Okay, so expect string and expect JSON. Yeah, so I think this is going to decode. Basically, it's going to pass. It's going to read the value. I think this is telling us what the message is going to be, basically. So read the value and give it to got text. Message equals got text, result, error, or a string. Okay, so I guess that's the string going to got text. All right, a little obscure, but okay, we can do an expect JSON. That's reasonable. Got items. I don't quite know what to do with that. Well, reading through it will take longer or less time than figuring out by trial and error. Okay, so let's at least bring up this link. Okay, I think we've mastered HTML options selected. All right. So I guess init. Init is and it's going to take the initial model. It's going to run one command for free, and then start reading user commands is how I interpret this. Okay. So one thing. Okay, I guess what we're going to do, we're going to put the dungeon in the state. I'm kind of regretting the choice of the name dungeon. It fits for a certain type of game, but I'm almost thinking a map is what this really is. It's the game. I think it maybe is the game. So the state is the state of the room, including the game itself. And, well, that might solve something. One thing I haven't really dealt with is the levels. And in a typical dungeon, there's often different levels. And in our case, we've got 3 levels. When you go to a new level, like what happens to all the stuff you already saw? And maybe this is a way to do that you could replace a game with another game. That might be interesting. And maybe it lets you do specialized, like I could imagine a specialized room. So I don't think I have the picture handy. I'll open it and later we'll look at it. But one of the examples that I wasn't sure how we're going to make it work, it's got a portcullis, and let's see. So I might be able to find a version of this here. Well, this is probably old, but it's not the latest, but it'll do. You've got a portcullis and you've got a bunch of arrows, and they're labeled things like get state, notify, set state. And the idea is that this represents the observer pattern, and you're supposed to move the arrows to correspond to a diagram of how it notifies. So I forget the name of the diagram. Is it a state diagram, or it's the one where you've got the connecting lines, objects on top, and then it just got the conversation. So I'm blanking out on the name, but at any rate, it's specialized. I would like to give you a little pile of arrows and let you actually physically move them up onto the grid formed by the portcullis, and when you've solved it correctly, I'd like to say, oh, you've solved this room. And I wasn't sure how to do that. with this structure, like I could have 10 different specialized mini puzzles, and like, do I have to make everything able to accommodate every mini puzzle? That really sounded kind of nasty. Okay, so I'm going to name this game, and I don't know. Let's see what it does. Refactor. Rename. I don't know, is it inviting me to type? No. Dungeon.elements usages to game. Let's see what happens. Oh, and I typed over this. Darn it. I have a bad habit of over-typing and typing too much stuff. All right. Import dungeon. Let's cancel this and fix my messing around here. Well, actually, it was responding so slowly I didn't know I was not typing on that. Okay, again, let's do a rename. Dungeon is going to go to game. I'm not saying it's the perfect name, but I think it's a little more generic. Okay. Dungeon.elm. Import dungeon, dungeon, all the capital D dungeons. Okay. How do I turn off? Yeah. I'll keep track of this. I may have to manually do it. I don't see a way to turn that off. Comment dungeon test. I'm okay with that one. All right, let's see what we can do. Dungeon test. We had a string dungeon. Describe game. Oh, well, that's actually correct. Okay. Let's do a save, and we should have our terminal. Okay, that's fine, but let's see this thing. Yeah, that should be rebuilding, and it is. And all our tests should pass. Yay! Okay, let's lock that in. Whoops. Terminal local 3. All right, now if I go up in here, not too far, basically this says add stuff for Git, commit based on to-do head, and push. To-do head is really a look at this file. So let's say we renamed, well, it's a refactor, rename dungeon to game. Okay, and yeah, I think that's what we've done. We'll do this. Okay. Now, we have, let's find game. Game has these decoders. Excuse me. Okay. I guess that rename took care of the file. Let's see if we can rename this. It's promising. Okay. Game. Excuse me. Okay. That looks like it did it there. Let's see what happens. Save and rebuild. Should pass. Okay. And then anybody who references dungeon, well, this method I'm going to change to game decoder. And it's the old Shift F6 that I can never remember. There aren't a lot of usages. Okay, save. Rebuilds automatically. 2 files changed. Okay. All right, and then let's do a global search. I'm not going to object to every instance of dungeon. Okay, dungeon. Especially in our to-do. All right, these probably should be named differently. Game. And main. The JSON we don't care. Dungeon in the game. Oh, let's rename dungeon task. Okay. Can I look it up and then hit it? Good. This module name is out of sync. I needed to match the file path. Well, that's kind of weird. It looked like it did. Maybe I hit it too fast. Okay. Yeah, so I think let's take that too. We're still the same to do. So many of those uses of, well, the uses of dungeon in game, I think probably should be made back into game. The ones in the main class, like the ones that are a consequence of calling this the dungeon, I kind of don't mind. You know, that name is kind of okay for this game. I don't know. Maybe it's not. That probably should rename too. Okay, so we're due for a break though. So let's take a 2 or 3 minute break. We'll come back. We're going to finish the renames. Then we're going to switch the dungeon to make it part of the state. And then we will figure out the file loading part of this and get it into the state that way. So we got a little work to do on the interior code and a little bit of work to do to make the exterior code work. All right, so 2 to 3 minutes. See you shortly. Hi, welcome back. All right, let's find the rest of the word dungeon in more places, I guess. Okay, now the contents Well, it's a little dungeon-like, I guess. So that's fine. But we will Shift F6. That's okay. That's just the content. We're trying to get the shape, and the shape is deal with the game. Okay, and so there should be, yeah, there's those. And then dungeon test, which is now game test. Let's find dungeon in here. Dungeon. So I think our game is still assuming there's the notion of a room. And I'm mostly okay with that. Games have rooms. I mean, I'm not trying to make a game that's any game ever invented, and you read your philosophers, and there's no definition. A fixed definition cannot adequately define something like this, right? It's a social relationship or something. But we're not trying to do all games. We're just trying to do these games. And our games have rooms with dialogues, and that's okay. Game, I think this is game can read JSON. Excuse me. Excuse me, sorry. Let's rename. I'll be back. So it's fall here, and I'm getting whatever allergy corresponds to that. All right, this is actually right. These are separate local scopes. Dungeon 0 times. Okay. Now if we search globally, it should be pretty uncommon. Okay. Stuff in to do, that's fine. Oh, game.elm still has a bunch. Oh, that makes sense. Main.elm, yeah, that's just part of the game itself. All right. Main.elm. Oh, sorry, game.elm. We're looking for dungeon. It wouldn't be completely wrong, but I think it's confusing enough. This helps change it from a dungeon to a game. And I don't really expect this to get like all kinds of uptick or anything like that, but just trying to get it right for what it is. Okay. And let's do a save. Hopefully our test pass. Yes. Commit this again. The use of the to-do, it's sort of my intermediate level check-in message. I could do each message separately, and maybe in some cases I'd be better off, but if you do TCR, like the tools that do TCR, which is a version or a relative of TDD, it auto commits every time the tests pass. And the tool for IntelliJ just sort of like gives you a static commit message. I really would love it if it would say, oh, I realize all you did was a rename, and make that the commit message. But it's not quite that intelligent. So this is a little bit of a compromise. I usually these are sort of like mini stories, I guess you'd say. They're rarely more than a couple hours work. So they're on the small side, but the commit can cover those, and if I want more detail, I can add it. So yeah, let's. Now I've chattered so much. All right, let me just make sure I did get them. Okay, good. All right. So I think we've done the rename. Let's move that down. Load dungeon from file. Well, the first step is make the game part of the state. All right. And let's see. Our state is here. And this has consequences. Oh well, maybe it's not too bad. I was going to say changing the contents of the game. All right, right now the game is just this dictionary that maps the rooms to each other, or maps a room key name and to the room itself. All right, but we do have stuff we want to add besides that. When we do, we're going to have to redo these decoder functions. Right now, this one knows it just consists of a dictionary. But our state, we don't actually persist that. Okay, so I can add that. Wow, I kind of want to do this. Actions should come before guesses. Let's see if that works. Oh. It does not. 2 places. State knows guess when current room has one. State test. Oh, yeah, all our constructors would change, wouldn't they? Yeah, that's one reason not to like positional constructors. All right, let's deal with all these. All right, so I switched the order of the last 2 constructors. Oh boy. I hate how much this thing is growing. And I hate the fact that these constructors have identical types, because it means if I didn't have the tests, I wouldn't have had necessarily any sign of trouble. Other than everything blowing up and not working, right? Okay, I think that is all these. The ones that are identical, we don't need to worry about. Okay. Those. And that should make the tests, these tests happy anyway. But oh, there we go. Yes, it does. But let's make sure main. We need to find anybody who does a state. All right. I think it may be limited. Let's see. Can I match case? Okay. Parser. .js. I don't know where I'm looking for things. Okay, here's main.elm. Okay, yeah, these are going to change. State is fine. Let's look at main test as well. All right, so main and main test. And I don't see main test. Here we go. Okay, there's a state from an empty dictionary. Update gets a... Oh, now here we've updated the field specifically, which is a good way to do it, at least as far as what we're doing here. Okay. Why does that indentation seem wrong? That is that. Where does that one go? Oh, my describe block. Okay, I guess I've done them all at that level. All right, so main test is okay. Main, the state here. Let's find our update function. Yeah, this one, model, we've updated the field. Yeah, that's, now we've got, and again to review, the actions coming before the guesses. Okay, so the actions should be first, guesses last. Okay, now what that suggests to me, I mean, if I'm just going to pull the actions and make them that, I think I can do the same kind of trick. The first one is, what is it, the room? Current room. Is new room. And I don't know, is it a comma? Visited equals this. Okay. So I would describe what we're doing then. Refactor change order of state fields is probably the better description. Okay, where's that main again? So I'm saying make the model, same model, take the model, update the current room with a new room, and the visited with this stuff, and then actions and guesses should be the same. All right, so I'm trying to protect myself against these sort of changes, right? So make it less dependent on the field order. Right now, only the constructors care, which is a starting point. Okay, and also that's more parallel in structure to the other actions here, and I'm going to do the same thing here because I'm trying to reflect the order. The go to, then you can do actions, then you guess the pattern, and I don't think anything cares about this order. So let's just move it up. Okay, so I'm kind of just trying to reflect that order throughout. And I mean, it's a small thing, but I think it's one of these things that pushes the system towards consistency and being easier to understand. All right, so I think I can live with that description. All right, now let's take that next step. And we get all the same places. All right, let's see. Can you get a game? How easily can you get a game? I guess dictionary.from list of empty lists will do it. All right, let's see. Now, what tests are going to change? I don't think there's any. I mean, I think we're doing. Make game be an explicit part of state. I think that's how I can best describe this. So right now the game is in there because the HTML mostly is working with it. But where's the HTML going to get its stuff, right? So today, here's model. Okay, so how do you handle the guessing? Well, you find the current room and look up the right answer. And then if they've matched the right answer, if the current guess matches the right answer, we put out certain text. All right. So I think this use, well, let's see. No, that's model. Where's dungeon or game? Well, I guess the right answer comes from the game. Okay, so the dungeon. Well, wait a minute. Did we rename dungeon? Oh, we did. Okay. Okay, so from the game, you get that stuff, but you're getting the game because it's a global variable. But if we're going to read it from a file, we got to make it held somewhere. And where's it going to be held? It's going to be held in the state. Okay, so before we can read it, we're going to just hold it in the state. Okay, so the next thing we're going to add is a game. And I think I can do this. Well, I try and put these in kind of an order. Okay, puzzle. Okay, so now I'm saying there's all this. There's a new field in town. All right, and I can see somebody's complaining already. So, let's see where these places are. Should be all compiler issues still, yeah. And oh, I wish I could just do a clean right after each one of these. Okay, past, changes. All right, state test, that's good. Yeah, really the thing is we don't have a game constructor here. And we don't really reference it anywhere. So I almost want to make a helper here. I guess it's like that. No, that can't be right. Well, I need to import dictionary, I guess. Huh, why aren't you offering to import? Well, maybe this is more correct. Yeah, those are all. I mean, they need a game. I'm hoping this has to import. No. Well, what am I doing wrong? Let me try one. Can I just say game? Can I do that? Well, where do we declare a game? Well, that's in here. Oh, game.fromList. Okay, fine. Not liking that. How's this one? That one seems okay. Well, let's keep trying. Now, if it wanted to complain, oh, I don't know, empty game, I need a prefix on it, I'd understand that. Let's see if that helps any. I cannot find a game.fromList variable. I cannot find a game import. Game.elm. Dictionary does not. What? The dict module does not expose a from list variable. These names seem close. Dict.fromList. Yes, that seems very close to me. Okay, main.elm missing something. All right, I don't know how I misspelled it. Did I undo? Okay. Something must have been a weird character or something in there. All right, and then main, well, we got state with no game. So let's give it game. We may have to move game up. Let's move this. Yeah, let's move game up. All right, and I guess it's going to be part of the model for now. And we hope everything passed. Didn't get to say that full sentence. All right. Room 1 visited, line 16. That's not this file. Okay, main test. Okay. We can do game empty game. Okay. Alrighty. Okay, so at this point, I think we've successfully incorporated the game into the state. Now, okay. Yeah, let's get our to-do updated. Make game be an explicit part of state. Yes, we've done that. Okay, load the dungeon from the file. I guess that's where we are. Okay, so... Well, I will admit there's some ordering going on that might be problematic. So one of our stories, text should come from the dungeon description, e.g. headers. That's going to modify our game structure. I mean, it was called dungeon, now it's called game, but those headers have to be in the game somewhere. They're not part of the dictionary.from list, right? They're more like section headers or something. It's going to have to be a whole new thing. Excuse me, not tied to rooms, more of a separate thing. So I guess, that means we're going to do this, then we're going to have to change things, and then it's going to change from the file as well as the other. All right, but let's see if we can get this browser element thing working. All right, so I think, okay, where's that browser line? Let's find here. Okay, we want to do browser element. Okay, things should be complaining. All right, let's see what the complaints are. And I don't know if I can get a whole list of them or anything. Seems like something's trying to flash that up for me. Yeah, I don't know what. There we go. At least that. Who's complaining? Nobody. Well, somebody should be, because this does not match what browser.element wants. All right, let's go back to browser.element. Let's start at the top. Browser element. Okay, we know browser element has to be flags to model command message. Okay, so our init function, we are not doing that. All right, view model to HTML message. That sounds fine. Message and model goes to model and message. And subscription. Okay. And I think those are all going to be required for element. Okay, so we don't care about the flags. So I think, well, let's add this. Subscriptions equals. We can make this a lambda that ignores things. It goes to sub.none. All right. Sub is the subscription model. None should be some sort of default thing that makes things go away. Now the lambda, the init can also be a lambda. So we don't care about the flags. All right, and we have to go to state or model and command. All right, so it's a pair. Init for us. Can I maximize this? Init is a model. Okay, so that is okay by itself. A model and then an initial command. Well, let's just start easy. I don't know if command, I think this is going to be the same as our message. Wherever those got off to. Okay, so I'm going to make a new message. None. That means don't do anything. Okay. And we're going to reference that. Message.none. I think. Oops. That. But I think there is a command.none. Maybe that's the one to use. Command.none. Main as command. I don't know. Okay. Let me take this back out temporarily. Maybe we don't need it. Okay. It was complaining briefly because it didn't have a none. Do we still need a none? It might be telling us we need a message that's none. I'm not quite clear the difference between command and message. Okay. Require. Hey, we finally got this. Unresolved reference none. Okay, so let's put none back. I think that was down here. None. All right. And in case of none, we're just going to return model. And I guess I can format it more similarly just to kind of keep everybody looking happy. Okay, so none says don't do anything, just return the same old model. All right. All right, now this thing, update. Let's go back to our description. Init view. View takes model, it goes to HTML message. Well, I guess it wants view next then. View then takes model, goes to HTML message. That's what we have. Update has to change. Update takes message and model, goes to model and message. Okay. Update equals update. Well, the problem is oh, come on. You want to do it? You want to tell me? Oh, every time it's like if I just move a little bit, maybe I have to be on the red underline. All right, init goes to a model command message, view goes to model HTML message. That's fine. Update goes to message to model to should be model and command. Subscription goes to model sub message. So yeah, our update method is not quite right. No, my theory is not quite right either, but we can go find our update function. Update goes from model to model and command message. So this is a pair. All right, and I'm getting that right from here. Okay, and I have to give a message to these things. Okay, so the message, and this is where I maybe, I'm not sure if it's aware of the none Cmd.none. All right, let's do that to each one of these. Model with Cmd.none. See, I think Cmd.none is what this thing understands. Like, as you're updating. Okay, so I think the deal is this is a more sophisticated version of that Elm architecture. The one we started with, you just produce the model and that we're done. The new one, we're producing a command message that is like we're saying, here's the new model, but go ahead and run this new command. And so it lets you slip in an extra command rather than making these compound commands or something. You can just put one in as you detect it. And I think Cmd.none is the thing it uses to say, like, stop the madness, don't pass any more in. Okay. So my hope is this compiles and I hope it runs, but I don't know what's going to be going on. Okay. Your modules form a cycle. Oh, why it's disallowed and how to break it, I'm good with that, but what does it mean? Your module imports form a cycle. Well, they gave me this convenient. What? Now I'm puzzled because I think we have our functions right. Update. Oh, it's that command thing. Let's see what happens here. Okay, now. No, where did it find it? Well, let's just try none. I found message. It needs to be command message. Can I say command none? These names seem close. They don't seem close to me. All right. Well, we're due for a break. Let's take a couple of minutes. Suggestions from the crowd, always welcome. Make sure nobody suggested one already. Okay. I'm sure it's something simple, but we'll see in 2 or 3 minutes. All right. Welcome back. I'm going to do a little research on commands. So I just typed where's command defined. Hopefully this will explain it some. All right. Element. Elm/core. Okay, init update subscriptions view. I guess the order doesn't matter. It's really like a record update there. Okay. Loading Http.get got text. Well, that's kind of okay. I mean, this one's saying 3 things can happen. You can either fail, you're in the process of loading, or you actually get something back. All right, so init model command message. I'm not sure why that corresponds. I guess that's the model. Okay, loading. Start off loading, but do an initial command to get this. All right, now where's this none coming in? Well, update, when you get a message back, message and model, if you got text, two things could have happened. Subscriptions are none. See, they're using Cmd.none, which I understand to be the sort of default case to kind of break the loop of this looping update mechanism. They import browser, HTML, and HTTP. Let's look at, well, this is browser. I don't know where command gets defined. It certainly gets used. Elements where we were. Now there was application. Oh, okay. Adds these URL things. All right, but that's not helping, is it? Browser. In the example, example here. HTML, which I think is the writing side, and HTTP. None of those sound like command to me. They're referencing Command.none. That is not in their message type. So that tells me I'm probably doing at least something kind of wrong. Maybe the name is throwing it off. So let's take this case out. Okay, that's still not happy. Command dot. I must have had uppercase instead of lowercase. Okay, that's the. Well, how are we doing? Your main program wants an unspecified type from JavaScript. Type variables like flags cannot be given as flags. I don't know what that means. I need to know exactly what type I'm getting. Okay, let's go back to the description of browser. Element flags. Well, let's see. Can I find a browser.element example? I want to see what their init looks like. That doesn't help. Where are you? Down here. Java interop flags. To handle flags, init. Oh, can take int. Well, I don't know where int comes from there. And it says take an int flag, but somebody tries to make one. I don't know if there's a never or something like that. I like to use JSON to decode the value. Can I do it that way? So this may be a place where my documentation in the book is a little out of date compared to the stuff there. How do they set it again? Flags colon. Okay, and if they don't do flags colon, elm.main.init. Well, we haven't tried that part. Let's see. Do we even have one? Index.html. Elm.app.fullscreen. Flags is an empty object. So maybe I can declare there's a generate for this. Nothing here. Oh, maybe I have to put it on here. Generate. Nothing here. I thought there was a way to get it to describe your elements for you. Program a model message. Okay. All right. Your main wants an unspecified type from JavaScript. It doesn't really, because I want to just ignore it. I only have it because you make me. All right, let's see what main's type is. All right, we've got to go back to Browser.element. Oops. Browser.elements type is program flags model message. Set MSG. Okay, what will you tell me? Anything? Your type annotation uses message. Is it command message? Is it model? Message? Okay, is it still going to be complaining? Yes. Well, something said JSON.decode.value. Okay. Oh, my update. This is progress, actually, I think. Okay, main test is complaining. Well, that seems legit. Because main test is testing the update function, which no longer produces a single thing. It produces a pair. So let's do Cmd.none. none. Get both these while I'm out here. And then here. And here. Now this is still all Cmd.none. We haven't figured out the HTTP stuff at all. Okay, main test 35. This function cannot handle an argument sent through the type. Test run passed. Okay. Whoa. All right, so I guess our tests have updated. I'm gonna hide this. So now we are ignoring the flag. Anything JSON can get, it does, and I think it defaults to empty, so we'll call that a wrap. And it produces an initial state and initial command. It has a view that turns that model into a HTML, and the update method is taking message and model and producing a new model with a potentially new message. And everybody down here, all our updates, they say I don't have a new message, just load the thing and be done. Okay. And our tests pass. I guess what I would describe this as load dungeon from a file. Well, no, what we did here is we switched to Browser.element using Command.none for any additional commands. Okay, and that's pretty low level, but we're making space. So I don't know. I hesitate to call that a refactoring, but let's save it. Let's run it. Okay, it's looking the same. Okay, the behavior is the same at the level we're talking about. Okay, and what color is gold? Oh, you can see, like I mentioned, I suspected I had some backwards quotes. If I go back, this one's still puff of smoke. Sorry, we haven't been to that one yet. Go back here. All right, puff of smoke. Sorry, and this one is still Alex. What color is gold? All right. So, well, in that sense, it's a refactoring. We switched from using one approach to the initial startup with Browser Sandbox to the slightly more sophisticated Browser.element. Okay, and given the test pass and the code looks like it's doing what we expect to do, we're going to call that a wrap. At least as far as Get's concerned. Okay, and that's enough changes for one change or one commit, that's for sure. All right, so now we've done that, and we want to go on to the next stage. Load the dungeon from a file. Now, this is potentially confusing. And I'm going to go back to my book. Sorry, can't see. All right, well, we have this expect string from HTTP. I'm trying to find that first example with the model. Now, the problem is stuff can go wrong. Very, very wrong. And I've kind of lost my place here. All right, so we're going to use this Http.get. But the initial command thing, I'm worried we may have to deal with, well, somewhere we have to deal with the fact that well, we have to deal with the fact that the file that's supposed to be there might not be there, okay? And that's going to make things a little tricky. All right, where's initial command? Okay, so here we can see we got to add something to handle that. All right, so wow, I don't know. Like, I want to do a file load first. Can I do that? It's just that I have no idea. I mean, I presume there's a file reader that works much like the other. Maybe I can do the URL could be a local host kind of thing. Core HTML browser. Wow, there's no... Oh, it's not popular. Okay. Download example. You want to download a plan. SVG. Download.string. That sounds a lot like expect.string. You give it a file name and a type and content, which I don't know what that is. A string, which is content. I don't know. Oh, we may be going through the same deal here. Requested, selected, loaded. Well, here we can see this multi-step kind of thing. So I guess requested is for somebody says, I want to get, I'd like to upload the file or download the file. And we say that's fine. If you get something that says request a file, given a model, then it's the model with a select file and a type, and I don't know what that is. Oh, that's the command you want to run next. Okay. And then when you come selected, now you have a file. I don't know where you got the name. I guess it's, well, it's one of these. I assume select.file is a file selector, like, hey, browse your files and pick one. And this type comes in, and then this will get the results of that piped into it. And then you'll be given a file, and you're going to perform. I don't know what that does. I guess it's going to execute this with the contents of the file. All right, let's see. Elm URL for local file. I'm trying to make this a little easier for me. Local HTML server. Well, that's fine. Okay. Oh, then maybe I can just use that name. I'm hoping Reactor is like that. That seems likely. If we go back to our code, the images, they get looked up in the HTML stuff. Scene, class, main image, source, game image. And that's things like images slash, which I kind of shouldn't need, but maybe I do. But that tells me that somehow it's looking up the name in there. So I think maybe I can just put my dungeon.json. All right. Now URL equals, well, let's see what we can do here. Http.get, let's import get from module. Well, I just want the HTTP module. What did it suggest? Both those seem really wrong. Okay, let's try it up here. Import HTTP, exposing. Well, let's just expose get for now. Dict.get. Well, am I misremembering the name of this thing? Always a possibility. Elm/HTTP. All caps. No. Import HTTP. Oh, I bet I have to install it. I think it's like that. Whatever you need. Okay. Good. Good. Okay, so if the URL is dungeon.json, which we'll address later, HTTP string expect got photos. Well, this is going to be a command for us. I'm going to call it load game. And load game string. And here, load game contents goes to well, I assume it's going to be model with game equal contents and command.none. Game does not like contents. Found string required game. Yeah. Well, I'm going to punt for now. Dict game.from list nothing. Command.none. Okay. Somewhere we have to actually do our JavaScript parse and all that stuff. But I'm just trying to get this together. Okay, let's see what we got. Load game, load game, load game. Now there may be, I don't know, we may have to do some work in the model. Load game is a string.message. I need to be HTTP error and string. Expect string needs the first argument to be of type result HTTP error. And string and produces message. Error contents. Okay, let's see what we got. Load game is an error to string to message. It needs to be a result. All right, well, we're out of time. I'm not quite sure about this week if I'm going to be around on Friday or not. And I'm definitely going to be gone next week, Sunday. So I will have to I'll update the calendar and put something on my website or something. But we will pick up there, trying to get the HTTP loading the dungeon JSON into our game and see what we get. I probably should take a simpler one for starters, but we'll figure something out. And I'm hoping this message gets us on the right track next week. Thanks for joining me today. I hope to catch you in the future. Take care. Bye-bye.